Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast. In this week's show, we're going to be talking about all of the big news of the Disney Plus this week, which was loads. We had Hamilton, we've got to talk about Percy Jackson, we're going to be talking about a new movie called Clouds, giving our thoughts on It's a Dog's Life, and all of the new movies that are going to be coming in June. So let's jump into it. First off, into some of the housekeeping. Just a quick big thank you to everyone who is a Patreon. Andrew, Giuseppe, Joshua, Julie, and What's on Netflix for all of your support. Really does make all of the difference with keeping the podcast going. Also for Patreon users, you're going to be getting early access to our retro review for May, which is going to be The Princess Bride, which we're going to be actually recording straight after this, so they'll be getting access to that for a week before everybody else does, as a little bit of a perk. Also, just a quick apology for last weekend's podcast going up a couple of days late. There was a major problem with Zoom where I couldn't actually download the podcast. We recorded it as per normal, and I sat there waiting for it. Normally it takes minutes. Monday morning it turned up. So there was major problems with the whole network. It wasn't just, there were so many podcasts and TV shows and stuff affected from this, but hopefully I just checked then and the status is okay. So I was like, come on, we've recorded it. It was even worse when you've actually recorded it and then you can't get it up. But there we go. So let's move on and jump into the big news, which I think really, it's hard to tell this week of which one was the bigger news, Percy Jackson or Hamilton, because the reactions in our Facebook group and online were very, actually I'd say Percy Jackson, that won out actually. So we'll start with that one. There's been talking about for a number of months, but the writer of the book series went on Twitter, put out a little video saying that he's working on a series, and they're going to be doing, out of the 5 books, each book is going to be a season. So there's probably 5 seasons. And he even tweeted a picture that I think it was overnight that he's just started writing the script or the screenplay. So this is still very much in the early stages, but a lot of people are excited about this one because obviously we got those first 2 Fox movies, but they never went on and did the Everfree. The first one just got added in the UK yesterday, and the other one is going to be coming in June. Been kind of drifting on and off, but I'll be honest, I've never actually seen it. But what did you think of this news when this got announced?
I'm pretty interested in it, honestly. I never saw the movies either. I kind of got warned away from them by people who had read the books. I haven't read the books, but that wasn't because of the content. I have a hard time reading books that are written in the first person, and from what I remember, that's how these are written. So never read them, but I'm always interested in mythology. I love seeing how that kind of integrates into this story. So I'm pretty excited for this. And I was very actually surprised to hear that this was going through at all, because I know that the writer, Rick Riordan, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but he was very vocal about the movies when they came out and had very scathing things to say about the script and what they had done to his story and how they'd mauled it and changed it. And I figured either he was never going to trust Hollywood again, or Hollywood was never going to trust him again, because you don't want the writer of your movie bad-mouthing it. But obviously they came to some sort of agreement with Disney, and hopefully that means these are pretty accurate to the books.
Well, also I think he's got a very good, because I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to think, he's actually got a lot of books being published by Disney, so I think he's actually quite a well-known, he's obviously done a lot of books, but I think ultimately sometimes going back and, letting sure the creators got full control, not necessarily is always, sometimes it could be a bad thing, but in this case, he never got to see the actual end of it. He never got to see it done properly. And I think fans are just clamoring for that, like the whole thing rather than just this little bit. And I think really a TV show about kind of 12, 13-year-olds with superpowers, big brand name, big attachment rate because of the amount of people that have read the books. This just feels like a proper Disney Plus show to get mainstream audiences in, and I think this is exactly what they need right now.
And I think we're finding that books do translate to series better than to movies a lot of time, because for a 2-hour movie you have to cut a lot out, and you lose context, you lose nuance, and we've seen that over and over again. There are exceptions, of course, Lord of the Rings being the obvious one, but having the series, the room to grow and breathe and develop subplots and some of the side characters who aren't as important as the main character, I think that really gives TV an advantage. That's not to say it's automatically going to be good because it's TV, but I think the opportunity is more there. So this is big news, and I'm looking forward to it.
I just had a quick look here on the Disney Books, because they do a lot of publishing of books, and they literally, it's like 5 pages of nearly 15 to 20 books. There's so many different offshoots and like little books and classified stuff. So I think he's been kind of part of like the Disney book side of things for so long that maybe they're going, well, this guy, he knows this stuff. Let's let this guy have a little bit more control over it. And I also think right now we're in a stage where Disney's not in that, and we'll talk about this a bit later on, but I think they've kind of grown a bit over the last few months of getting more control over what they're doing. They've got more, and I say they've probably got a lot more clout. All the guys that are running it and stuff like that now, they can kind of go, well, we have got 55 million subscribers. We can spend some money now. And it's just like, it's no longer you guys are costing us a fortune. Now it's like, oh yeah, how all your businesses are closed. Well, you want to give us some money.
There is certainly that, and then there's also once you get the order for the episodes, you're going to get the whole season because they don't cancel streaming shows halfway through. At least they haven't yet. That could always happen in the future, I suppose. But they've also got a lot of name recognition going with the Mandalorian, and we showed with the Mandalorian that we are willing to put actual effort into these shows. These aren't just get the name on it and throw it out there kind of nonsense.
And I also think as well, if you've got like five books or 5 seasons, it's basically a 5-year road layout for Disney Plus. That could cover you from maybe 2023 right through to like 2028, and then they start doing some offshoots. They could have a big franchise here and I just think it's great. I mean, everyone's going to remember she showed the first page of the script. I mean, I suspect he's probably done a bit more than that, but we're still only in script zone, so there's a lot of work. So it's going to be a while before anything, but literally it was like the reaction to this online. I was like, whoa, okay, because sometimes these things happen where you put something out there and you go, wow, that's a lot more popular than I was expecting. Because if you've never read the books, because I don't think they were, they weren't around when we were kids, and so therefore you can completely miss out on an entire whole thing. I think Harry Potter kind of led on from that, but yeah, and I think this is just great news all around. It's exactly what Disney Plus needs. So moving on from there, a big news as well, and this one definitely caught a lot of us off guard, was Hamilton. I think was it only earlier this year that they announced that they've kind of got the rights for making a Hamilton movie, but also the Hamilton stage show they filmed a few years ago in New York. It was a special screening. It was kind of like with people, without people on set, like a camera or like a film, but then not like a film. And it was very unique. And it was sat in the can, and it was going to be released in October 2021. I remember at the time kind of going, wow, that's a long way out for a thing that was filmed in 2016. But it was going to bring some big money in. And, well, now they kind of sorted out a deal to bring it to Disney Plus on July the 3rd, just in front of Independence Day. And it's going to be global. It's going to be all over the place for that on there. And this one, again, just really got everyone. I think we've got so used to hearing delays and delays and delays and delays, to have something pulled forward from the cinema nearly 14, 15 months earlier. Big news, big hit for Disney Plus. I think we don't yet know. Looking at some further detail into this, there's still going to be like DVD and video sort of releases for this. They're still, I think, even planning on releasing it in cinemas next. I think they might even keep with that release date. I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of movies out next year. Maybe they felt like they needed to pull some back, but I thought, yeah, that's a really big, bold move to do that. And I'm going to be honest, I wouldn't be at all surprised if that Beatles one does something similar, if they can kind of pull something right with that one, because I think that. But there's a lot of people now talking about the movie or this Hamilton. There's a bit of swearing in it. Apparently, it's rated PG-13. Lin-Manuel has already said he's quite happy to do a little bit of editing to get out some of the swear words a little bit. If it means it can reach a larger audience, I think they're quite happy with it. I think there might still be a little bit in it, but a PG-13 will allow for that. And yeah, I just thought this is such a nice, big, heavy hitter for July, because ultimately they've already used up Frozen 2, which I think would have been coming in July anyway. So yeah, just big news. What did you think of it?
Yeah, this is huge, honestly. Hamilton was, of course, a huge hit on Broadway a number of years ago, and is
Even
still
London, yeah.
at London. All the major musical venues, it sells out still to this day. My mom still tells the story of how she was able to score tickets to Hamilton during a blizzard in Boston, like because nobody could get there, and she was like in a hotel two streets down from it, so she bought them really cheap off of Ticketmaster or something.
Ticket tax, they usually have them there, yeah.
Whatever it was, and that is one of her Christmas stories. So like, I got tickets to Hamilton. It's like that's pretty big clout there. So the fact that it's coming to Disney Plus and will be accessible for everybody, for people who have only heard the hype or maybe
I've literally had no knowledge of this. I knew it was popular. I knew no one could get tickets for it, but I didn't know really. I don't know a single song. The first time I've ever really heard of was until Moana. I'd never heard of the guy, really, to be honest. And maybe, again, a movie about breaking up from England, maybe that was why we didn't cover it so much over
Yeah. It is very much an American property, not just the content of it, but also the style of singing within it, because it draws from more American influences. This isn't Les Mis or Wicked or something like that. This is much more hip-hop, urban style.
Look, we gave you Cats last year, so I can't really complain too much on that one.
Yeah, well, we've got Wicked coming up too, if you want a more traditional.
I have actually gone and seen Wicked on London can't wait for that one. But
I saw it in Chicago, and I really loved that one too. I'm looking forward to that as well. But it is a very different style from Hamilton, and it'll be interesting to compare and contrast the two.
And one thing is, like with Hamilton, is I'm actually quite looking forward to. That's going to be something I'm going to sit down with my wife and go, look, this is something you are going to like. It's like this is a stage show. Because more often than not, she looks at the stuff and goes, it's not for me. But Hamilton, and they're going, this is going to be something you need to watch with, we'll watch this on that Friday. Yeah, I'm just really, I think this one's such a big movie. It's got a lot of clout to it. So it's hard to imagine really at the minute of going, okay, this week they have just been batting out that Disney Plus has got a lot. But they've got a lot of competition going on at the minute.
There might be a little small company you might have heard of.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Freeform is going solo and open. No, not really. No, there is a new service launching very, very soon, but we don't have many details about it, which is a little
HBO Max. I mean, we're going to have to I'm keeping an eye on it, primarily because I think there's going to be a lot of 20th Century Studios movies on there, and we're going to need to be monitoring what's going. Things like Spies in the Skies and Cool in the Wild in the US is more likely to end up on HBO Max for a while until that whole deal ends. Internationally, it's not quite so clear cut. But moving on from there, another movie that got announced this week was a new movie called Clouds. Now, this one is going to be coming in the fall, and it's all about a kid called Zach Soborek, and he ended up getting a rare sort of cancer and ended up releasing this video online called Clouds, which ended up going like massive YouTube hit, massive hit, went to like number 1 on iTunes. And then his mum then wrote a book all about his story. And so they've turned the book into a movie, and it stars Finn Argus as Zach, also stars Sabrina Carpenter as his best friend. They've also got Nev Campbell and Thomas Everett Scott in there as his parents. But what's interesting as well, this one managed to get completely filmed before the virus hit. It's actually been made by Warner Brothers. They brought this one. They've literally gone out and brought a movie for Disney Plus, and it's the first acquisition they've made from the movie side of things. They've done it with TV shows. For example, a lot of people might not know this, but Diary of a Future President was actually made by CBS. This is something they're going to be doing anyway. They'll be buying TV shows in. So hello, Sony, we need some TV shows. But yeah, this was like, this came out of nowhere, but it also shows maybe Disney are looking to go, we need a few things to sort of fill out this year.
That, and they tend to want to branch out a bit. You can normally tell a Disney-made show or movie just on basic factors, and having separately made shows, movies that they can bring into the lineup gives them a little bit more range and lets a different voice get heard. That kind of thing.
It was strange because I was like, well, why would Warner Brothers sell it when you've got your own HBO Max coming out and you could have sold it as an original? It was a bit like, but at the end of the day, if Warner Brothers are going, yeah, you're going to pay us more money, then we're going to, yeah, you can have it. It's not really going to work for us. But again, just more lineup. I think we're going to start seeing more of this. I think Disney are starting to get a little bit more faith in Disney Plus and realizing that there is a lot of important things. But this just kind of feeds into this. Again, this is like a drama, obviously with teenagers, but I think they're like 17, 8, so they're a bit older. So I thought that was good. And I'm thinking, okay, so we got that. We've had Hamilton. We've got the Taylor Swift concert coming to Disney Plus as well on Monday. So that's going to be international, but it's only going to be a limited run. So that one's going to be running. So we don't know how long limited is, but I just thought at the minute, okay, you guys have you're dropping in some much less like Disney things, which I think is a good thing for mainstream audiences.
Yeah, you need to have some things that aren't traditional Disney, as long as they don't go like too far into the R territory, which should drop onto Hulu instead.
Yeah.
But that big complaint back when it launched, everything is PG or G, and adults were looking for something with a little more intellectual substance to them, and now they're starting to get them.
It was quite when we think of like, I think it was February when we were like, High Fidelity's been moved and Love Victor's been moved, and it can't be anything above a PG, and they were getting a bit everything was being cancelled. All these shows were being, because it wasn't, and it was like they've had a complete reshuffle and reorganize how they're kind of organizing themselves. And I think they listened to that feedback. I think they heard a lot of feedback on social media from people going, and maybe with surveys and stuff of going, oh, hold on a minute, we've gone a little bit too far, as much as we wanted to keep everything for Hulu. But, the amount of people that subscribe to Disney Plus now, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. I mean, one prediction from one analyst at the minute is predicting maybe 200 plus million subscribers by 2025 now. And the number just keeps growing and growing and growing, and they're looking at it going, we need much more content than just Disney Channel and National Geographic.
Yeah, and also world events have kind of indicated that there's a lot more people staying at home, and they're going to be watching the things with their kids. So you've got things that aren't going to just kind of destroy the brains of the adults while the kids enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think they underestimated how many adults were interested in the platform to begin with. I think they were genuinely thinking, okay, we've got the Mandalorian to keep them entertained, but the real focus of the platform is to drop your kid in front of Mickey's Clubhouse or the
looking at the trending every week. I think there's a lot of kids being put in front of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
Not to say they were wrong with that number, but I think they were underestimating how many people wanted to use it as more than just keep the kids occupied while you're stuck working from home kind of deal.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's been a lot of data this last couple of weeks coming out of like traditional television satellite and cable has been plummeting through the last 60 days since this whole situation came about, of people just leaving cable and satellite in their droves, because obviously a lot of people are trying to cut back on money, but it's almost speeded up cord cutting. And I don't think, because everyone's thinking, oh, we're all home and we're good, but it's like they were all turning to streaming services because traditional television wasn't providing that, the flexibility. And now there's a lot of talk about like these television companies and cables and stuff having to change what they're doing because numbers have just started free falling. I mean, you look at some of the charts of where people have moved from traditional cable over to sort of streaming service. It's just, there's this big dip now suddenly from March onwards.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this last week. I think a lot of people don't want to follow the old television model of you will watch whatever is on television right now. Because you're there in the middle of the day and your options are kind of junk. So instead you're just going to go, I'll go watch Netflix, or I'll go watch Disney Plus, or next week I'll watch HBO Max instead of Family Feud or, Yeah.
Yes, it's definitely going to be, it's all moving around a bit. So moving on from there, let's move on to our next topic, which is Into the Unknown. The documentary series is going to be dropping on June 26th. And this one, again, the whole season is going to be dropping on June 26th, not just the one episode a week. It definitely feels like Disney have decided that maybe system is not working quite as well as they wanted. 6 episodes, about 30 to 40 minutes each, looking into basically the behind the scenes of how they made it. And be interesting to see where this one goes. It's really kind of, to be honest, there's only really this and Artemis Fowl coming in June, so I'm thinking there might be a little bit more. But I think for Frozen fans, keep a lot of interested. I'm a little interested to see how this all works and to watch it, whether or not we needed 6 episodes. I mean, we're talking nearly 3.5 to 4 hours on how they made it, and it's a 2-hour movie.
I mean, it's not that much different than The Mandalorian in that sense, but
yeah.
But we'll see. It depends on how deep of a dive they go into it. Like if they get into some of the truly technical stuff on how they make these kind of movies, that could be very interesting. And it would even be fun to watch this and compare it to, say, some of the making of for Chicken Little or something like that. You know, back when they were first starting with the 3D process, the computer generated process, just to see how things have changed and evolved over that time. You could even do the first Frozen, because it's still been, 8 years? 9 years since that came out. But if you go back to the early 2000s, drawing some of the Pixars, that process has grown and evolved and changed so much in the last 2 decades.
Yeah, I mean, I've always really been interested in how they make all these shows. So I'm interested to see how that works. But I also think it's a good call in some ways for them to kind of go, right, we need to make content. We need to fill up Disney Plus. So let's now just start doing a lot more behind the scenes, revealing the magic, because I know there's an audience there. And essentially, it's a very cheap way of making a series with high-end stars in. Because if you look at like The Mandalorian and this, you know, you've got your Josh Gads and you've got your Jon Favreau's and stuff all doing these different like behind the scenes. You'd probably not get them in just to do a talking show kind of thing. But because they're interconnected and filmed while they're making them, if they're inclined to just do it there and then. So it'll be interesting how the numbers work with The Mandalorian going forward each week with the Disney Gallery and then with this season. But I'm just, again, it just shocked me of like going, okay, now they're doing the drop again. They're doing the big drop of all the episodes. And yeah, we might as well, we'll move on to that while we are here with the drop, because they did announce the June lineup for Disney Plus. And there was something I wanted to bring up before we get into this. Looking at the drop now, literally there was 4 dates. Every Friday in June, they were doing a big release of new content. But I also noticed when I was putting together July's list, and I would usually go in and then compare the dates to make sure things haven't changed, because they've never have. But I thought, for some reason, I just thought, well, I better just check the dates to make sure they're okay. And when I went through the list of all those movies that are currently on Netflix and HBO and stuff in the US, nearly all of the dates for 2020 have moved to the next Friday afterwards. Some of them have, like Christopher Robin and Ant-Man and the Wasp, have moved the whole week back, not the 2021's ones. And I was like, okay, they've shifted everything onto Fridays. They've moved all the ones that had placeholders. They've gone in and changed all of the dates on there. And I was like, oh, okay, this is, and then the following day, we then get the drop for June. And it's like, okay, they are really going heavily on this Friday drop thing.
I think they're probably noticing that Friday is the good date to do it. Like you can drop stuff on Tuesday, Wednesday, but a lot of people probably aren't going to check them out until the weekend anyway. You might get a couple people in our situation where we're viewing things like that, but people are just used to going, okay, Netflix, they drop everything on the first of the month and Friday.
Yeah.
We don't even bother looking for new things on Tuesday or Wednesday or anything like that. And I think we're just conditioned for that. So aside from a special event, like say May the 5th or May the 4th, sorry, where you can go, okay, this is a Star Wars day. We're going to drop Star Wars on May the 4th. It just makes more sense to do it on Fridays or to pick a day. It didn't have to be Friday, but just pick a day so everyone knows this day of the week is when the new things come.
I mean, there's always going to be exceptions, you know. Like I said, we had the Taylor Swift thing and we had the family sing-along, because that's more of a catch-up thing. And I think they've even started to realize that maybe there's a lot more effort to be, you know, they can do that now with Disney Plus. They've started that in the last sort of 6 weeks or so, where they've been starting to drop things days after they air on ABC, rather than you've got to wait 6 months for it, because the value in it is right now. And I was like, okay, so also it's going to look better when they kind of go, okay, it's Friday, and these are the things that are available today. And it's this, and this. Because when they drop things daily, it gets lost in the shuffle. But it was just very noticeable of that shift. And when all the placeholders changed, and then June's drop, and it was like, okay, Friday is the day. There's probably going to be the odd little special here and there. But definitely makes Fridays a little bit more fun in terms of what content is going to be available, especially when they start doing this drop system of dropping, 10, like next Friday, we've got 15 episodes of The Big Fib. It's like, okay. So there we go. So moving on.
Let's talk about that.
Yes.
Let's talk about The Big Fib.
Yeah, we'll do that. They did actually release the trailer for The Big Fib. What did you think of it?
It certainly was a trailer.
Yes. It was one of those things. Just before we went on air, I was like, okay, the big trailer fib, or Big Fib. And did I see that? Yes, I did. Did I? And it's like, yes. And then I remembered, no, I have seen the trailer, and almost like kind of instantly forgettable kind of thing of, okay, no, I actually watched it twice. And it was a typical kind of game show. The kids are trying to work out who's the expert and who isn't. And it all looks kind of good, a kind of kid stuff. A lot of comments when the trailer went up of, this looks like a Nickelodeon game show. What is this like? There wasn't a lot of love for this series yet. I think it's got a lot. And I don't know, maybe if the drop is the best thing for this, if get all 15 episodes out, see what the interest is, rather than the week-to-week drop, because 15 episodes would take us right through to what, nearly September. I don't know if that would have worked, but I'll watch the first episode, but that trailer did not sell it to me. I'll be honest. It was not for me. It's not built. And yeah, it's difficult to tell, isn't it, with these kind of things?
It is. I mean, the actual content of the episodes could be better than the trailer. It was only 30-second spot anyway. Yeah. But I have to agree. It's very fluffy. It's very just kind of building on the kids versus adults motif, and then also adding in that the very Nickelodeon idea of, well, if you get it right, then something gross happens, and
also they've got like a robot like sidekick, and it's all just like, okay.
And I'll admit, I've got some nostalgia for that kind of show, like Double Dare back in the day, or even something like Guts, which wasn't a game show but had similar ideas of having gross things involved with it, and. But even that, I'm just like, I was
going to say, the one thing that got me with this one was not dropping the trailer till the week before the show came on, and we'd not really heard anything about it, and we'd not really seen. That was always that kind of thing. They're not kind of, when you see companies not promoting something before something comes out, sometimes says to me of like, yeah, they are. Maybe they've not got full faith in this, that it's going to pull people in. For my view, it was like you're holding on to the trailer and you're dropping all 15 episodes at once and making this big shift. It was like, ooh, is it all right? Is it going to be okay? We'll find out next week. Hopefully kids will like it, but I don't think it's going to be for me personally.
No, I don't think it'll be for us. And we're not the target audience, but
no.
It is something I could see parents just plopping their kids in front of to keep them occupied for a little while, simply because it's new. It's something different. It's not something the kids have already watched 30 times over and possibly driven their parents insane with. But I don't think it'll last much longer than that. You'll get through the 15 episodes and move on to something else. Hopefully by the time they get through 15 episodes, the next drop will be ready.
Yeah, so let's move on to June's drop. So on June the 5th, we're going to be getting Alaska's Grizzly Gaunt, America's Greatest Animals, Chasing the Equinox, Howie Mandel's Animals Do Things, Seasons 1 and 2, Secrets of Wild India, The Greeks, Weird But True, Seasons 1 and 2, Wild Hawaii, Woman of Impact, Changing the World, and the finale of the Be Our Chef. We've also got a new episode of The Mandalorian, the Disney Gallery. And, of course, we have got to have One Day at Disney and Disney Family Sundays. We've got one of them every single week through the whole, every single Friday before we go in. That thing just feels such out of place. It's just like, yeah, it's another Disney Family Sundays. It's like, hopefully people are watching it, but I don't know how many they made. And then we've also got It's a Dog's Life, episode 4, and an episode, that month's episode of the Disney Insider, where they take a look at Artemis Fowl, The Taste of Disney, and the Runaway Railway. That's definitely seemed to have kind of slid into a monthly drop now. But what did you think of that first week?
Nothing like super must watch kind of nonsense, but you don't want every single week to be a huge drop. You do want sometimes to just be like, yep, these are the usual things. Here's some new crafts for you to do on the Disney show, and here's a fluff piece documentary that's actually an ad, but you enjoy it anyway, kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely feels like now that we're getting into some of the slightly older National Geographic stuff from the 2010, 2012. We're getting a few more of those older ones. Well, they're old enough that they're still digital and all the rest of it, but they've not gone into the really old stuff yet. They're still in the early bits. Moving on from there for Friday the 12th, we've got Artemis Fowl. So that's going to be the big one that week, which, yeah, I think that one's going to be fantastic. Mighty Med seasons 1 and 2, the Liberty story and the story of the animated drawing, and Walt and El Grumpo. So there's actually El Grupo. I keep saying Grumpo. There's El Grupo. So we got 3 really old-fashioned 1950s stuff looking at Walt Disney there. So I know that hopefully they arrive because that's the issue. But a nice bit of some classic stuff there for some fans.
It's always kind of fun to see how people used to think about these kind of things. What did people think about Walt when Walt was still at the top of his game, before the various parks were open, things like that? Because Disney back then was a very different brand than it is now, and it's kind of fun to see. Well, what did they think was going to happen? What did they think the future was going to bring, and how did they think of the stuff that was coming out from Disney at the time? Because if it was the 1950s, then the war still wasn't that long ago, and Disney was still kind of recovering from that. It was a different time, different era.
Yeah, I just like the fact of them going back and bringing all this stuff in because it's for older fans can enjoy it, new fans can kind of go, oh, what's this? But also just bulks out that vault aspect of this has got a load of older stuff in there as well. Kids might not want to watch it, but why not utilize it? You've got that massive history of shows and movies. Use it. Don't just sit it in a vote. We've also got new episodes of Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian. We've got one that week, and then we've got the finale the week after. Same thing with It's a Dog's Life with Bill Farmer. We got that every single week right through June. Moving on to Friday, June 19th, the 101 Dalmatians series from 1997, Big Sur, Wild California, Muppet Babies Playdate Season 1, Schoolhouse Rock Season 1. We've got something from the 70s there. And Tinkerbell and the Pirate Fairy. And as I said, the finale of Disney Gallery. So anything catch your eye from that day?
It's fun to see the old Schoolhouse Rock videos. I don't know if they made it over to your side of the pond.
No.
These were things a lot of middle schoolers, high schoolers grew up with, even into when I was going through those. And these are fairly fun little short 5 to 7 minute things, and they cover all sorts of topics from how to use a conjunction in a sentence, or what are the what's the difference between a noun and a verb, things like that. But also,
was this something like with Bill of Rights or something like that?
Oh yeah, that's the famous one. Is how does a bill turn into law? And it's been parodied in so many different.
Well,
things.
the thing is, I'm coming into it as I only know it, I think, from The Simpsons and South Park.
I was going to maybe Family Guy, because Family Guy did one of them as well.
Yeah, see, I've come in. So I had no idea what it was when I was looking for the YouTube video to see what it was. It's like, oh, okay, I think I know what that is. But yeah, that's definitely some old stuff there.
It's one of the ones where you're more than likely familiar with the parodies without having seen the original. I don't know how well these have aged. Obviously, some things don't change. A conjunction has been a conjunction for literally centuries. I don't think you have to worry about that being outdated. But there might be some topics that have kind of changed over time. I think they did some science topics, and we know a lot more now than we did back then.
Yeah, I always think it's that kind of thing that you don't want you just because it's out of date. It's like put it up there. This is an ode. Just put a warning on it at the front saying, this was and just let people know that things change, because things that do have a tendency to do that. Apparently, because this is what got me, because it made me laugh. There was a comment last week on our podcast. I think I referred to the Czech Republic as Czechoslovakia. Of course, it hasn't been that since like for 20. Of course, you learn these things at school, and they stay in your head. You know, Russia was USSR at one point when I was a kid, and you know, these sometimes your brain does, and all the kids now that don't, it will happen to you. All the words that you use, it will mean something completely different in 20 years' time, and what you learn now will stick with you, and it will stick with you for life. And you kind of retrain your brain into saying something different, like 20th Century Studios.
I've definitely encountered things like that where I'm like, oh, right, that's not a thing anymore. One of my favorite little fun possessions I have, it's actually at the office. I keep it on my desk, so I haven't seen it in months now. It's a globe. It's a globe. It's about this big, and it was printed so far back that it still says the USSR on it. Yeah, stuff like that, and it's fun to just put it there, and people will come by the desk and like, oh yeah, wait. What? That country doesn't exist. That country doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, it is strange because it's like, I think you start hearing of all these things, and it's the old names stick in your head. But that's moving on. So June the 26th on the Friday, we're getting Man in Space and Mars and Beyond. Hopefully, we've said that before. Again, 2 classic Disneyland episodes from the 50s. Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the Lightning Thief. So that one hopefully we should be able to, kind of went on and it went off and been on and been off. Season 3 of Raven's Home. Tarzan 1 and 2 will be heading over to Disney Plus. And not actually mentioned in the official release was Avengers Infinity War. Though if you look up Disney Infinity War on Disney Plus in the US, it will say the date. And I'm wondering if they are holding that back for like a second PR beat to kind of go, look, we're getting Avengers Infinity War, and the rest of the world will go, yeah, we've had it since it launched. but I have a feeling that they feel that one is an opportunity to kind of get a second wave on this one. And
probably. It was also fun watching this week. I think it was Avatar: The Last Airbender popping onto Netflix, and everyone in the US going, yay, we've got Avatar, and the rest of the world going, we've had that. It's been on Netflix for months or years.
Yeah, it's amazing how often that happens. Generally, usually it happens the other way around. But apparently, I think Black Widow, we're going to be getting like a week before you guys again. Moving on from there, that's if we want to go cinemas. Into the Unknown, making Frozen 2 will be dropping as well on that same day, along with, as per usual, the shorts and It's a Dog's Life. So that was June, and I was a little bit honest. It was a bit like, Into the Unknown and Artemis Fowl. This is about it. It's not a huge. It's a bit. I think there's going to be some surprises. I think there's going to be something. It feels like there's something missing there. I don't know. What do you think?
They're going to skip Black Widow, and we're going to get Doctor Strange, Adventures in the Multiverse in June. They haven't shot it yet. They don't have any of the special effects. They might not even have a script, but it's coming in June 2020. Calling it right now.
The trouble is right now we're in this like weird situation where obviously they can't film anything, but having already talked about Clouds and Hamilton, I'm not really putting off the idea that they will buy some stuff, speed some bits and pieces up. It just feels like I've sort of read that and go, they've still got time to do a couple more, maybe 1 or 2 extra things throw in there to kind of, because while it's all right, and you can definitely see, like I said, each Friday, they're much more of a mix of movies and classics. There's new seasons of shows every single week now. They're kind of spreading them out. But you usually ends up with a load of people going, oh, there's a load of National Geographic stuff. And then other people go, there's a load of Disney Channel stuff. And it's like, yeah. And where's the Marvel shows I got promised? I've been missold. And like, not getting them yet. So moving on from there. Speaking of Marvel, New Mutants now has a release date in cinemas of August 28th. We're on to, release date number 5 or 6 now. So they keep carrying on with trying to sell this movie in cinemas. People might go see it. I mean, I think there's definitely some interest in this movie. But yeah, are you going to go see this one?
No.
Would you have gone and seen it? Would you have gone and seen it had this current situation not been on?
I probably would have waited. Well, no, I would have waited for reviews. gone to a couple of trusted reviewers, and if they said it was acceptable, I'm not even going to set a high bar for it. If they said it was okay, I probably would have gone and seen it. But if you hear like, oh, it's a train wreck, it's a mess, it's exactly what you expect from a movie that's been delayed 7 times, I would have waited.
Yeah, I was a bit like that with Dark Phoenix. I remember going, you know what, I'm just going to wait. And I watched it and went, yeah, it's all right. But I really, at this precise minute, I'll be honest, I've got no idea of going into a cinema in August or July and seeing these movies. And that, in some ways, I don't know about this date. I mean, they might be looking at it going, we're going to get it in, but with California and New York still kind of closing down, and they're the major big areas, it's going to be tricky. But nice to see it kind of confirmed of what was going on with it. They've reshuffled a few other dates around, but at a certain point they've got to start releasing these movies because they're just going to keep stacking them up. But I know, like filming, for example, here in the UK, the government have now stated that with social distancing measures, they can now start doing filming, and I think like that's going to start kicking in of where they can film. Obviously, they're not going to fly anybody over to film it here, but things are starting to move back into that zone of starting to film. I think California is a little bit different, but I think obviously in Atlanta, you can go and record down there, but it's getting the stars to those locations and whether or not they want to go. That's going to be the key issue.
And that is the major issue, because even for movies that I am excited for, let's say Black Widow or live action Mulan, I'm going to be fairly hard pressed to say I want to actually go to the theaters. I'm more in line with I'll wait for it to come home, and I might not even wait for it to go to Disney Plus. I might rent it off of Amazon or video on demand. But the idea of going to a theater within the next 6 months, if not longer, really is not appealing at all.
Do you think they're going to speed up the whole process this winter for like video rentals and Disney Plus? They're going to keep just, maybe it's like a 3-month period between cinema and then like 6 weeks later movie to rent, and then 6 weeks later Disney Plus, because they've kind of used everything up. They're going to have to keep getting it in then. A lot of people staying at home, 40-50%, say even just 40% of the audience decides to stay at home. The big chunk of money left on the table to go pick up. And while they want to get you back into cinemas, and the theater owners will want to do that, ultimately they keep talking about the fact of having to make adjustments and keep changing because everything's changing. But it'll be interesting to see what goes on when these cinemas reopen, of who goes back. Because there's a large portion of the audience that is like, yeah, I'm going back to normal. And there's a big chunk of people going, nah. I know like our cinemas over here have sort of put into place new ways of buying tickets and stuff when they reopen, possibly in July. But it's going to be interesting to see how that all works out.
It could be interesting to see if we see a rise in drive-in theaters now. I know they've been fairly popular during this. I don't see them like suddenly popping up everywhere, but like here, I'm in Colorado. Once you get outside of Denver, it's open space for miles. There's plenty of room for these kind of things there. I know there's at least 2 not too terribly far from me, like not exactly around the corner, but not far enough away that'd be like, oh no, it's not worth it. We'll see if it becomes a little more common. I could see going to see Black Widow or something like that at a drive-in theater. That feels a little more in line.
I think the trouble is right now is because I've seen this get brought up a lot, and unfortunately, it's very much an American thing. That's true. And the rest of the world doesn't really do this. I mean, I think in the UK we've got like 4 in the whole country, and we haven't got the setup. We haven't got any of the equipment. Our company's willing to buy all that equipment for a bit of a fad for 6 months while people, and not being funny, but here in the winter, we're not going to want to be sitting there with our wipers going in the rain, watching it. And I don't know, even like in the US or wherever, like you say, in the winter, in November, are you going to want to sit in the snow or in a cold night in the car?
It depends.
That's in the summer it's one thing, with where you got the open windows and everyone can sit out and kind of have a bit of a party. I've only ever seen it on Grease, but
I don't think there'll be parties. I don't think that's going to be part of the equation. It really depends. I mean, if you're in a place like Colorado, there's certain times a year you're just not going to do it at all, because you roll down the window and snow's going to come in, or hail. Hail's a problem here. But you go a little farther south, closer to the equator, get a little more temperate during the winter. Texas is a huge state. There's a lot of open area in Texas. you can't even fathom how much open area there is in Texas unless you've driven across it.
Yeah, I did. It's a big old state.
It's a state where you can literally start driving and go in a straight line and not leave the state after a full days of driving.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the big thing, because I've seen, like I said, I've seen it being brought up, but I think the trouble is there's a global audience now that that system doesn't exist anywhere else other than the US. I mean, they have like gimmicky ones and they have a few around, and I think it will help the US cinemas kind of keep ticking along a little bit, but throughout like Europe and Asia and Africa and Latin America stuff, this just doesn't really exist in that same way, because it just was never. I think our climates, every country's got a different system and stuff of how it works. So I think it might be a shot in the arm for the US cinema to keep people going, and it might help bring up those numbers for those theaters where you might go, oh yeah, we'll go watch Wonder Woman like that. I mean, there's been a talk of like doing like open air cinemas here and doing them in parks and stuff, but no, who's going to pay? There's no way of stopping people from getting in and just walking along and sitting there watching it. I don't know. It's difficult.
Yeah, and then you've also got the fact that, say, we've seen a lot of these video-on-demand movies doing very successfully. The Trolls World Tour, very famously, made more money on video-on-demand than the original Trolls movie made in theaters at all, leading to that fun little, AMC boycotting Universal movies going forward. Not for that specifically, but because Universal's like, nope, we're gonna keep doing this, and so that was fun. But people are getting used to the idea of getting first run movies on video on demand day and date. You pay a little bit of a premium for it, but you can watch it under your own conditions, and I think people appreciate that a lot.
I think we're in a weird situation now with like the theatre owners are obviously, they're scratching for their survival because, they're all completely shut down. Some of them are starting to reopen and stuff, but there's no big cinema releases for ages. And it kind of, I feel like that speeding up of the process of, for example, how quickly something goes from cinema to digital to Disney Plus. They've talked in the past about how fast they need to speed things up to kind of get away from that, 6 to 8 months from cinema release to Disney Plus. They've said that they might have to speed that up a bit. And I think this is they've essentially already used up their free summer movies with Frozen 2, Onward, and Rise of Skywalker. They've already used them up. So now they're instantly the rest of the year. We would have had Mulan dropping maybe around October, November. So it's like, well, will they just do that anyway 3 months later and do that to keep that? Black Widow would have been dropping maybe December. And now suddenly you're getting into the situation of like, you lost all of that. But it's going to be interesting to see how this all, at the minute, it's just good in some ways that Disney have got a big enough library, I think, to keep filling that in and maybe holding back some of that content that's actually worked out for the best for them, because they've still got some big key ones to play. Well,
we know that they were holding them back not to get them on Disney Plus later in the year, but kind of holding out hope that they'll still be able to get them into theaters and make some of that money back. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
2020, there's still a lot of time left in the year, and anything could happen between now and December.
Yes, it's everything just keeps moving. It's definitely an odd one. So moving on from there, speaking of that current situation, the director of the Ulysses and Flora movie was speaking out this week about the fact of her working from home on the movie. They wanted to do some reshoots, but obviously they can't do that. They're still working on doing all the post-production from home. It's a lot trickier because they've got kids and pets and bad internet to kind of work around, but it's still all scheduled to come out when it's supposed to be out in the fall. They're just having to be a little bit more sensible in terms of how they're using the shots, flipping images around, using, where they would like, oh, I'd like to reshoot that. Now they're going, no, we're going to have to twist it. Even the director's having to do temporary voiceover work to kind of put it in place so they can get the real person to do the real job later on. And I just thought it was very interesting, the fact of the director being like, hey, we're still on schedule. We don't want to put out a bad product, but we can't delay. We have to, and I think you're going to see a lot of that. And I suspect, we've been seeing it like with the Mandalorian stuff where it's like, no, you are hitting that date. And if it means you're going to have to make some sacrifices and some changes, you're going to have to do it because you've got no way of reshooting.
Yeah, and I think this lack of reshooting is going to change the way movies and shows are done, at least in the foreseeable future for a while. Because especially in the last, I want to say decade or so, uh, movie companies have become very reliant on being like, okay, we've got our original shoots and we'll just fix whatever doesn't work later. Because you don't know what's not going to work most of the time. And you know, looking at Star Wars, every single one of the Star Wars movies, we got reports of, oh yeah, they've gone back and done like another 20 hours of filming Rogue One, Last Jedi, Solo, all that stuff. And it's like, well, that's actually just part of the process now. But now you can't do that. Now, so
I mean, some of that you kind of look at it and go, well, is that just maybe bad planning to begin with, of them kind of not thinking, trying to rush it into getting it out and just do it? Oh, we'll worry about that later. We'll fix it later. We'll just redo it if it doesn't work. Whereas like at the minute, they're having to do so much more planning. And also there's going to be this other problem of scheduling, because they're going to be like, well, you want to do a reshoot? Well, yeah, but we've got nowhere for you to reshoot. Our books are, our studios are jam-packed with movie after movie. You've got your 4-week slot and that's all you're getting. You can get back in, but you think like with movies like Pixar and stuff like that, there's a reason why you don't tend to see a lot of like deleted scenes in those movies, because they don't do those scenes until they're ready. Obviously with live action, with some of the like maybe the cheaper movies like Stargirl and stuff like that, it's easier for them to do it because there's no special effects so much. But I don't know, it's just going to be interesting how that works, and they are going to have to play a lot more smarter with their movies.
And it's not even just special effects; it's how the actors and actresses change.
Like New Mutants, they're 5 years older. They're not kids anymore.
They're 5 years older, and famously, you've got Justice League with Henry Cavill, growing a mustache in between the original shoots and the reshoots, and them having to digitally remove the mustache because he couldn't shave it off because he was working on a different movie. And you get things like that all the time. So what's going to happen here is either one of two things for a lot of these movies that have already shot and now aren't going to have reshoots. You're either going to have a lot of very odd cuts where the directors just aren't going to be able to make it work. And they'll try to cover it up as best they can, but what would have otherwise been a good movie now might become more of a joke in some senses. But when you put very creative people in highly restricted situations, sometimes you can get some amazing results out of them. And the question will be, which will we get for some of these movies,
I just think it's just a situation right now of like they're obviously at a point where it's like, we have just got to just work with what we've got. And sometimes it can make things better. Sometimes it's just like, well, that's just what it is. Get it out, move on to the next project. Because, it's funny because I see this a lot, like, for example, like with following like how to do YouTube videos. So, and there's quite often this thing of spending so much time on the planning and the preparation that you never get that video done. When in reality, it's like, do it, learn from your mistakes, move on to the next one. And that's kind of, you can almost see like with some of these movies are going, you've got your slot. You just have to do whatever you've got in the can. Maybe they'll just start shooting more stuff just in case, and extra shots and random shots and stuff. Just to kind of, like a bit of B-roll.
I was thinking more along the lines, we're going to see a lot more shots where you can't see the actors' mouths. So that they can go and redub stuff later. Because that's one of the big ones is you want to we changed a little bit of the plot, so now we need a line where they talk about this thing, and you just need a shot where you're like, I think that's a great thing going on, and you just can't see the mouth, so they can change it to whatever they want.
And it was like, I think it was in prop culture, they had that scene where the girl ran up the stairs, and we didn't know what you would have noticed at the time, but it was in the movie. It was the guy that was running up the stairs, but he'd already gone home. So they just put, and it's like you would never know. It was that kind of thing of like you wouldn't know who those legs were.
Why would you know? No. Or you go to the original Home Alone movie where I think it was the ugly girlfriend of one of Kevin's older brothers was actually a boy in a wig because they didn't want to destroy the self-esteem of some girl by having her cast as the ugly one, things like that. And But yeah, you get very creative results out of these things. It is fun going through behind the scenes stuff like prop culture or just DVD extras. And every once in a while you'll get like, this was an amazing shot and it was done in such a way. Why did you do it that way? Well, if we shot it a different way, you would have seen New York in the background.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's not nearly as creative as I thought.
There's always that thing of like when they go, right, here we are in New York City. Go, no, I can see the Toronto Sky Tower in the background.
Yes, here is Jackie Chan in downtown in the Bronx with the Vancouver mountain range behind
yes.
him.
Yeah. It is. You can do these things. Right. So let's move on now onto our last topic. Obviously, we had the new releases this week. So we had Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, but the new Disney Plus original was It's a Dog's Life with Bill Farmer, a brand new, going to be dropping weekly 10-part episode where he's going to be basically going around seeing what dogs do and their jobs and stuff. But I want to hear, what did you think of this first episode?
It was acceptable. I mean, it was entertaining for what it was. It was kind of fun to put a face to the voice of Goofy and Pluto because I'd never actually seen him before this. I don't think I'll be continuing on. I'm not really all that interested. If I want to see dog stuff, and granted, I do want to see dog stuff, there's much better stuff, even on Disney Plus, just
on
without
YouTube.
going to another one.
Yeah,
YouTube.
I gotta be honest. I watched this and I was like, oof. I got the first bit with the whales and the dog. I was like, okay, this is different. I've never seen this before, and then it went to a ranch, and I'm, okay. See, we have a TV show over here that's been running like for the 70s, which is it's a competition with sheepdogs. Sheepdogs is like mainstream TV. And, we see it on Country File all the time. And it was a bit like, okay, so it's a sheepdog. Okay. And then it was like, and then I don't know what it was. They like went to a dentist and then they had a really bad Skype phone call that kept juddering and moving around and stuff. And I was like, why? Surely this was filmed ages ago. Why have we got this really bad, like Skype videos just randomly put into the end of the episode? And this woman, and I was like, so I didn't really see. I don't know. I kind of watched it. I was like, oh, this is really just fluff, scraping the barrel kind of TV series of like, okay, you couldn't even. And it's like even the presenter, the guy doing it, I'm like, I found it really distracting with his voice when he was talking. I was just like, and like, you're drifting off because it was a bit boring. And I'm like, especially in the second half, I'm just like, I don't like this voice. It doesn't work. It's do it as Goofy doing an overlay of either do Goofy doing the voiceover or don't do Goofy. Yeah, this like weird. His accent, I don't know what it was. I just really found it quite jarring and just very average.
Yeah, I mean, he did do the Goofy voice a little bit when the sheep were coming out of the pen for the first time. He did the Goofy, go on, get out of here kind of thing. But otherwise, I found the voice a bit distracting because it's not a traditional documentary voice. It's not it's not the kind of voice you want for getting a viewer engaged with it, even compared to say like Elephants from a couple of weeks ago. That had
completely. It's like night and day,
totally different level. and it's like it's really cool that he's the voice of Goofy and other Disney characters, but that's not necessarily the right voice. And I think part of it though is this is very obviously aimed at a younger audience. This is even the parts that we know about the sheepdog, the whales and stuff like that, they don't do much more than a surface covering of it. There's no scientific backing. Well, this is why he can detect the smell of the whale this far out. It's just, no, that's what he does.
It just seemed very strange. Of just like it's along the lines of they were just handing out Disney Plus shows to everybody they met while they were walking around the lot and go, "Do you want a Disney Plus show? Here's one." It's just like it's like I know obviously some Disney fans are like he's a legend and all the rest of it. And it's like but he's never been on he's barely ever been on screen before, and suddenly you've given him a 10-part series. I don't know if he might have helped with having a co-presenter a little bit more established. And running, I just was watching. This is just so filler. I was just like, if they had literally done a world poop and done all 10 episodes now, I don't think I would have carried on, and I don't think I probably will carry on, because I was just like, sorry guys, this is just really just not. I don't know.
It's bland. It's bland. So there's nothing actively wrong with it. I think a couple people might get annoyed with the voice, but you just kind of get into it after a while. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that there's much better options, even within just Disney Plus. You don't have to leave Disney Plus to find better options if you want to talk about dogs. And then if you add in Netflix, YouTube, etc., there's just so many better things that you can go with. It won't be a bad thing to put in front of a kid. I think kids will find the first half of the first episode hilarious, because they say the word poop like 30 times, and we know love kids doing that.
I was eating a sandwich and they just dropped it out a lot. I was like, this is not the best time to be eating a sandwich. And it's like, here is some whale poop.
No, but kids are just going to be giggling through the entire thing, and that's fine. But
in some ways, it's like, would have it been better? It has like each half just being its own short, and then just dropping them like a one day at Disney shorts, right? It almost feels like we had this idea and we realized that we need to put them into whole seasons rather than shorts, because there's no continuity between them. And that third story just seemed like, we've kind of run out of, we need to fill another 2-3 minutes up. It didn't seem to be any needed.
Yeah, this was almost certainly a show that was going to be on Disney or Disney XD, and they're like, nope, we're bumping it over to Disney Plus, but they didn't make any allowances for the format change, so they stuck with we're doing the 30-minute format, and it will be 30 minutes, or I think it ended up being like 22 or something.
Something like 22 minutes.
Which is traditional length for a 30-minute show once you add the ads into it.
I think it was the fact of when I did press the pause button during the sheepdog thing to check how much long was left. That was never. How much longer have I got left of this?
Hitting the bar to say how much longer do I have to go in this episode is almost always an indicator that you're like, oh, this is it. It might be. There are occasions where you're like, I need to check how long. Is it worth me going to the kitchen to grab a drink real fast, or can I just wait till the end? But more often than not, it's like, how much longer do I have to sit through this thing?
It was strange, because I thought, well, I like to watch all the originals, and at least the first episodes of most of these seasons that drop, just to kind of get a feel for them. And it was one of these ones again. Yeah, my gut was telling me beforehand that this was obviously like playing up on presenting it as this dog thing, and Goofy and Pluto, and it's cute dogs. It's like, but cute dogs can't sustain everybody for 25 minutes. It's going to have to be something more in it. And like I said, I think that if I had it just been that first short and it ended on the well one, I'd have been like, okay, it would have got a lot higher mark for me for that, but that it just dragged as it went on, and that third story was just unnecessary. And like you said, it was just very bland, very, very bland. I know there's gonna be a lot of people going, it was great, it was fantastic. It's like, and it's not aimed at you. It's like, okay, but we didn't know that when you fire it up. Everything is mainstream until you fire it up.
And it's fine. If you watch this and you thought this was like the greatest dog documentary that you've seen in the last couple of years, then I'm absolutely happy for you. I hope you enjoy the rest of the episodes. I hope that you get a second season and you enjoy the second season. Not everything is for everybody, and that's perfectly fine. I think there is an audience for this. I think especially a younger audience will be able to sit through these and be able to enjoy. Ooh, the dog's doing the sheepdog thing. Ooh, the dog smells out these things. And he did the Goofy voice, things like that. Great. I think that's what they were aiming for, and that's what they got.
I think as well as like over here, we have a show called it's Paul O'Grady and dogs, and it's at Battersby Dog Sanctuary, and he's there with the dogs, and it's all funny and been running for years, and it's a really funny show, and we watch it everywhere, and you're always like, the dogs and all the rest of it, and it's a really nice, cute show, and it works really well. And I think in some ways of that thing of like when that's a much better version of the same thing, which is like I was like, and I like the idea of them going. I thought the whole thing of them going and showing this dog sniffing out whale poop, I was like, oh, I didn't know they could do that. That's really impressive. And I was like, okay. And it might depend each week of where they're going. But like I said, I just found that voice I don't know if it was like, yeah, this is like we need to get past just fluff at this point. And yeah, for kids, they might love it. And I know some kids will probably enjoy it, but I don't know how some of the kids are, will they drop off halfway through? I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. I did put up a question in the Facebook group today, so because again, it was crickets on this yesterday. Everything was about Maleficent when it dropped. And sometimes I do start going, It's very telling when there's no talk around a TV show of like, will it hit the trending? Things like that. You will start seeing like, is there very much interest in this show? Because like prop culture, there's lots of people, it's a fantastic show, and Imagineering story, and every now and again you get like the High School Musical one, but things like Be Our Chef and a shop class, I mean, that was pure crickets. I don't think we hardly saw a single post about that. People just weren't biting it, and maybe that's why they have dropped this weekly run, because they realize that it's not actually working.
I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
I think that it really depends on what the show is, and something like this with no continuous story between the various episodes, or even the parts within an episode, you don't need to do it weekly. There's no, the cliffhanger ending, what's going to happen next question. So just drop it all at once. Same with a big fib. I'm assuming there's no underlying story. It's game show. Something like the Mandalorian, Falcon the Winter Soldier. There's a hook at the end of episode to make you want to watch the next episode, and it goes. Friday rolls around, I am watching the new episode of the Mandalorian. I'm watching the new episode of the Ahsoka show, or whatever else pops in. But I'm not sitting here going, Be Our Chef, that I need to catch this week's episode. I will admit I have been watching Be Our Chef, but I normally I watch the beginning to hear what the challenge is, and then I skip right to the end to see what the final preparations are, and those can be fun. But that's also not kind of the point of the show, that I'm cutting an entire middle out.
Yeah, it's funny. I think they probably would have been better had they just dropped the whole season this week. And it's like, if you're going to do this, if you've done it for prop culture, Big Fib, and also Into the Unknown, why not do it for this one? It's just strange. But I'd love to know your thoughts on it's a dog's life. Are we just being too grumpy people, or do you feel the same? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like, follow, and subscribe on all the different platforms, and we shall see you guys in another video. Laters.